Greetings, everyone, and welcome once again to another Monday night of To an Imperfect Union, brought to you by the political consciousness of West Coast Steelers fan. Let's get all our commercial stuff out of the way. You can subscribe and donate at our Cash App, JE King 3, as you can see on the bottom of the screen. Uh, Most social media, we are West Coast Steeler fan, and if you're on Facebook, you can follow me as James E. King 3. So, with all the commercial stuff out of the way, tonight we had brought up a subject a few weeks ago about different fast food chains experimenting with automation. So tonight we have a special show. It's going to be moderated by Dr. Kaci. I see she's down there in the queue. And the subject is, will automation lead to the dehumanization of humanity? So, kind of laying that as the foundation, I'm going to bring Dr. Kaci in and let her start the show. Dr. Kaci, how are you doing this evening?
Hey, how you doing?
Oh, I'm doing fine. I see. You went back to boot camp this week. You got militant on us here,
Well,
huh?
since I was gonna be the moderator, I figured I might as well wear a hat
Oh, okay.
in
Well,
brand tradition.
uh, well, why don't you kind of lay the foundation because this was kind of your baby, and you said that you want to talk about this. So let's get this baby rolling.
Now, I don't know if I would go as far as saying that this is my baby, more so that I did definitely find a lot of interest in this topic because I had just have been seeing so much about it online and watching videos and kind of was talking about the subject in somebody's comments on Instagram. But before I get started, I want to make sure that you sent out your reminder links to everybody so that they could jump on.
I did send them out to everyone to make sure, and I guess as we say in the neighborhood, they're going to be CP late.
Okay, that's cool. I just wanted to make sure, because I know the links can be updated week to week.
Yeah,
So
that's why I made sure, that you got the right one. I made sure that everybody got, I sent it out this morning, and as I always say, it is technology, so make sure you test it.
well, I know, and that's why I just wanted to, just a little quick reminder, nothing too serious. So this week we want to talk about really the automation and AI of the world and the future. Now, the first question that we wanted to really discuss, and the reason why this is important is because, listen, we have a lot of companies that's doing a lot of layoffs. Um, all of the tech companies, pretty much everybody across tech and um, even non-tech companies like fast food organizations here in Atlanta, they have waitress robots already in some places. So we wanted to really discuss the just the whole complexity of an automated world, or where there is artificial intelligence that is really controlling the atmosphere. Now, personally, I watch iRobot, and ever since I seen iRobot, I was like, you know what? I might take the first generation of whatever they got going, and then after that, I don't know because it might get a little scary. And so far, I have seen a lot of artificial intelligence robots that are like human like, that can have responses. They have little babies, they have adults, whatever you need, there is a artificial intelligent robotic humanoid available for it. And it is a little scary to me because you don't know, uh as James just said a second ago, this is technology. So technology malfunctions, it can get viruses, it can be um you can just have so many malfunctions when you talk about technology in every way. So, James, do you believe that um robots will, change America or the world?
I don't think robots necessarily because remember I've come through like the first copying machines. So when you start talking about copying machines, you start talking about I can remember when you had the first diagnostics for your car when the mechanic hooked my car up to to a machine, and I'm I have no idea, like, hey, usually I take it to the guy out behind the back of the shade
Right.
tree and he take care of it, But I have seen so many changes, especially within certain industries, especially the manufacturing industries. And at first, it was some of the higher and mid range jobs were being eliminated, such as on the assembly line.
Mhm.
And then you start seeing, like these little machines, you put in a quarter and you get a sandwich and, different things, But the one thing that seems to be in common is that at this particular point, it takes someone that stands upright to come and fix these machines. We haven't gotten to the point where they are self-fixing
But do
themselves.
you think that they would fix themselves like I think about
Well,
hacking. I thinking about the listening in on the conversations, and I like all I think of the ultra intelligence portion of it.
look look at your phone.
I listen.
Look
We have gone from a battery operated phone to a phone with no battery, so you can't take the battery out, because I used to take the battery out of my old Samsung and put it in another room. Like certain conversations I would have, I would take the battery out. Even now, for real, if it's a real deep conversation, I will still take my iPhone and my other phone and put it in another room before I talk about some stuff, just because
See,
eh,
you know.
I got trust issues.
Yeah, well, take yours and multiply them by 10.
The
But
government
yeah,
has given me a large amount of trust issues, but not just the government though. Even when you think about how you talk about banks are getting hacked and all of these security breaches and data breaches, like that is no different than, dealing with a any type of AI um and automation in any way. Because if they fix themselves, are they really fixing themselves? It's like the government trying to fix themselves. They ain't did that shit yet.
well, we have said that technology has outperformed. Well, it has transcended, especially during this particular time period, um, the normal thinking. And I'm sure you'll get into it, but like, education, you have books that talk to you now, and I'm not a big conspiracy theorist, but I do remember back in the 80s and 90s when people were talking about subliminal messages and
Mhm.
messages going, So, I mean, as you said, being in the military, you can sometimes, look at these things and say, just maybe, but go ahead. I don't want to take up all your time. Go ahead.
I mean, no, this is a conversation. It should be more of just our thoughts and what are we thinking along the measures of the automation. When I as an audiobook maker, I record my own audiobooks, I edit my own audiobooks. I understand the um the it's good And it's bad. It's like a double-edged sword because sometimes regular books are good, but nowadays you have so much stuff going on. I guess if you got ADHD, audiobooks would be good for you because you can multitask and still get the information. And that's the one thing that I personally like about audiobooks is that I can be doing something else and I could just be consuming information that's good for me. So,
But on the other hand, as I said, being in the military,
mhm.
you also know what we can do with radio waves and radio frequency. So, you know, I'm not saying that Martians started the fires out here in California, but who's to say that there's not something
Would you
playing underneath
Yeah.
whatever you put on your particular book or or your message.
I can get that. I definitely when I'm going through my, editing process and I am rewinding it back, I'm trying to see if I can hear anything that stands out to me, and it's just me talking, so I definitely get that, but, it's just so much when you talk about, like, would you want robotic teachers, and because they already have a lot of automation, like, in the grading system, and everything is really online now. I think COVID really moved us ahead of a few notches. It accelerated the path to being in a more of a digital world. But I'm even personally kind of up in arms about going into the metaverse and getting addicted to the alternative reality because I've seen Stepford Wives. I think I've watched too much TV. Them shows be telling you something sometimes, they kinda be trying to it's almost like a buffer. Like, if you can accept this, then you'll fall in line with whatever's coming up next.
can but can you imagine a person that has started out, say, oh, let's just say black and white TV,
Mhm.
3 channels, you know now, I don't know how many channels are on my TV. My package says three over 300 and something. But I mean, then you have Prime Video. Then then you have so many ways of connecting. I mean, today you can even pay your bills. You know, Y-
All of
I
my
mean,
bills are definitely on auto pay.
see,
I just forget. I
see.
forget. Listen, I didn't have my dang on lights cut off and have the money like, "Damn, I just forgot to pay the bill." I'm tripping.
uh, oh, I now I would I will let you guess who's the first one
Mr.
in
Scott.
our little conversation. There you go. It seems that Mr. Scott is never able to join us on our other broadcast, but I do. Good evening, Mr. Scott. How are you doing?
I don't know why he give you a hard time, Mr. Scott.
Good evening. Good evening. Well, because they don't. I don't. They don't. They sequester me on the other broadcast because they know my opinions and what I have to say. See, I lay it down. I lay the smack down.
Yeah.
And so James JK3 thought he was going to have Dr. Kaci by himself tonight. So he's not.
See,
That's not going to work. Not happening.
We was actually anticipating a very healthy dialogue about automation and AI. And guess who's leading the show? Al. I had to put my hat on so that I could feel like I was, taking on the role more seriously. So, how do you feel about robotics, AI, and the way that the world is going in the form of technology before we get into the deep questions and conversation?
That's the question for me.
Yes.
Well, all of this, and I'll just say all this newfangled stuff, people are, they know how I feel about a lot of the technology. I mean, even getting into the show tonight. My granddaughter was here over the weekend. I was so glad she left, but I was so glad she came. I was so glad she left. but then she monkeys around with the computer, and she can get around on this thing like I'm telling you. She pulls up stuff like, and she's 5, and so me, all the passwords, all the supposed security, all of these things that go through, it's kind of an annoyance, and you really don't know where all this stuff is going. You really don't know who's actually monitoring it, who's actually accessing it. They say the Russians, the Chinese, there are people that sit
Yeah,
up all
gotta
day
be
and night to try to get into what you're doing. And then now, some of the things now, I haven't been to my bank. I haven't been there this year, but I have been banking online. And so that's another scary thing. My sister, she went to her credit union the other day, and they didn't have no tellers in there. There's no tellers. It's all self-service. Everything you do. And she's like, well, no. I want somebody to give me service of what I'm doing with this thing. This is your system. This is yours. And you want me to do it. So, yeah, my feeling about it is I don't think they're preparing the people as they should for this, especially in the schools where the kids know a lot about things they want to get into, but I don't think there's any understanding as to where all this information is going. This stuff, a cloud. There's a cloud up there somewhere. It's got all my stuff, and I don't know where is this cloud if I wanted to attack it. So
let's start there because it's really just a server. Somebody has a big old server. I can't think of one particular movie that has a room with servers in it, but there are plenty of movies with rooms where you see companies that have servers. Now, it's some companies that their whole building is just servers of memory and storage information so that people can store information on their servers. That's pretty much what that is. Now, I'm kind of thrown off by it not being any tellers at the bank. If I'm going to the bank, I definitely am not getting paid unless y'all gonna give me some fees back or something. What y'all giving me for having to do my own accounting because the bank teller is there for a reason. So that would definitely throw me off going to the bank. And I'm sure if your sister is older, then it definitely threw her off because older people definitely like a more personable interaction because technology is overwhelming. It's not just overwhelming for older people, it's overwhelming for young people too. They
But
just handle it differently.
but the bank used to be a neighborhood institution. It wasn't just a bank. You in a lot of cases, in most cases, if you owned a home, if you owned a car, if you had an outstanding loan, generally you either knew at least one teller in the bank by name, if not the bank manager's name.
Well,
And
now the bank manager gonna be the robot.
and now, I mean,
and they knew you, and they knew you.
right.
Yeah.
But just try, to go to. I'll give you an example. I have I had a free trial of Instacart, and after so many days, you're supposed to call and cancel or whatever, however you go through it. Well, it took me longer to find out how to cancel this account, and so they wouldn't take either a flat fee or a monthly fee off my credit card than it did for me to get the free trial. I mean, and then try to call customer service in almost any company
Mm-hmm.
and tell me the first thing, press 1 for this, press 2 for this. I mean, so I can see it being a wave of the future because it's so convenient.
Well, some of
And
those
and you don't have to have any interpersonal contact. Go ahead.
some of those subscription fees and free trials are designed to get you in the cycle. And so,
Exactly. Free is the lure. The word
yeah,
free. See, that's what everybody. That's all they see is free. So they. But
the
then they
minute
want
you
your
sign
credit
up,
card. They want you to
it's
give your credit card. They say we're not going to charge you now, but it's free.
it's, it's a set it and forget it type of thing. They hope that you forget so that they can keep on charging you. Because most people don't remember to go and cancel the thing. They at least get a month or two out of it. So do you how do you feel as far as will automation dehumanize the world in your opinion?
This is what this is really like. And Dr. Casey, you may not remember this, but James will remember this.
You better not say the Jetsons.
No, 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 no,
I was
no.
gonna say
There was
now,
a
now
show. No, this is very simple. This was a show called Jack Benny. Okay, and so Jack Benny was very frugal with his money. Jack Benny, a man came to hold him up and said with a gun. He said, "I want your money or your life." And Jack Benny just stood there and didn't say nothing. The man said, "Your money or your life?" And Jack Benny said, "I'm thinking about it. Okay, I'm thinking about it." But wherever he went, there was a store. There was a guy that said, "Hello." No matter what store he went to, it was the same guy. And that's the way it seems like when I call customer service, these people say, "Hello, my name is Jordan." It's the same guy. I don't care if you call the cable people. I don't care if you call the credit people. I don't care. "Hello, this is Jordan." It's the same guy. And so what that is, they should remember the Jack Benny show. Everywhere he went, that guy would show up. "Hello." It was the same, no matter where he went. He'd go buy some ice cream, he'd go buy a suit, that guy was always there. And so I don't know. This people's name is not John. Yeah, that guy's a name. They don't have no Americanized name. He has a name that I couldn't even pronounce. But
Mhm.
they're all overseas. It's the cheap labor.
Mm.
They pay them pennies on the dollar to do what they'd have to pay somebody over here to do it. And it's about their economy. It's about the world economy. It's about in a final effect, we're just getting played. I think we're getting played we're on a tether with this technology to the most point. To me, is it a good thing? In some ways, it is. I mean, I work out of the house. I do work all over the country on the phone every day. I do stuff all over the country on the phone. So yeah, I don't have to go anywhere.
So do you
Snow,
think that the
cold.
Jetsons kind of predicted this? Because I definitely recall seeing the Jetsons with the same technology that we're using now, but they had a bigger screen.
Oh, Dick Tracy talking on talking on his watch. Talking on their watch. I mean, get smart with shoe phone. Take your shoe off. Talk into his shoe.
Mhm,
So
mhm.
yeah. And I think a lot of the things that we see now, they've already developed. See, there are things now that are in the queue that haven't come up to the general public yet. I think now they're seeing the profitability of a lot of these things. They seem to be moving it in a little faster, but yeah,
And
I agree.
Yeah,
Jetsons
I got
really,
Tesla.
it was a prediction, and
You got Tesla.
no, but my neighbors have two. As a matter of fact, as a matter of fact, we were just talking about that because I have. Let's see, the neighbor in front of me, they have two. One of my neighbors, I have one neighbor, uh, and then I have another one that has a bigger Tesla. I don't think Tesla
Now
makes
that was
now.
even
well, wait a
before
minute. What kind of neighborhood do you live in? I mean, where do you
Wait,
live? I
wait a
mean,
minute,
Tesla.
Mister.
Man.
I didn't
I
see
live
people with
I live
Maseratis live in apartments.
I live in San Diego,
Oh yeah.
and so I mean uh, back during when the housing market was high, everybody was driving Mercedes Benz because they were putting the house up. I don't know how that worked out for some of them, but but now we have a lot of these younger people moving in that work from home, and uh, I, I I don't know, and I'll be truthful, in my neighborhood, I don't know how you can have a house note, a car note, and be able to live comfortably unless you have a job that's paying at least six figures. Now I'm still trying to figure out where these jobs are in San Diego, you know, because you know, uh, according to the Bureau of Labor Statistics, you know, there's supposed to be a bunch of jobs out here, and people are supposed to be living good, but every place that I go by is a fast food restaurant or a pizza joint, or Papa John's that says we're hiring. I haven't seen anywhere where it says IBM or the Navy shipyard. I haven't seen any of them hiring out here. And to go back to what you were saying, Dr. Casey, see, when computers were that big and it took a whole building, we knew where they were at.
Mhm.
Right now, they might be in the house next door to you.
Mhm.
You never know. I mean, like you said, the biggest computer we have every day is this thing right here. So you to me, if if you're someone that's paranoid, this is not the age for you to be living
What they gonna do?
in.
They have
Hey,
to adjust.
well, I mean,
So, but what about that car that Tesla that stopped on the highway in California? Like that
oh,
was
they had a petition out here against Tesla because of the self-driving cars, and they said that they would stop or they would make inadvertent turns. Yeah, there was a big thing out here. Uh, as a matter of fact, one of the first places I saw Tesla was in the Las Vegas airport because they have the cars that don't have anybody driving them, and they give you a choice of which. So I'm already in Las Vegas, and there's enough. I took the driver. I'm sorry, but anyway,
right.
but I mean, these are things that Mr. Scott, and these are things that we talked about in elementary school. Some days all cars would be electric, and some days they would be putting man on the moon, and people were saying, no, no, that's never going to happen, and this is never going to happen. Well,
I
a
mean,
lot
I've seen people sleeping behind the wheel of a Tesla, and like they trust it with they have to trust it with their life to fall asleep behind the wheel.
But what's to stop somebody from driving the Tesla somewhere? The door is locked. You can't get out. They take you somewhere. It's
Like
like
they hijack the system. Yeah.
it's like me and baby went to Jamaica. No, no, no. It was Cancun, and we got there late at night. And so we get into this cab, and this guy's speaking. He can't really understand me. I can't really understand him, and we're on a dark road. And I mean, we're just driving and driving and driving, supposedly to get to our hotel. We don't know where we're at. We don't. I mean, we are in Mexico somewhere. We don't know what. No, there's no street signs, nothing. But to do that with not even somebody driving the car, that the
Mhm.
car is going. I mean, it was totally pitch dark out, and she's looking at me like, "What do you think? What do you think we should do?" I said, "Ain't nothing we can do, but go to where he drops us off. No lights, no nothing, nothing." And so that whole thing to me, it's frightening. It really is. I mean, I'm not going to get it. It's bad enough to get in cars now at the airport because there are people of foreign persuasion that speak, and they don't. They say they know where I'm going. I get in the cab at the airport, and I say, "Well, take me so and so, Minneapolis," and we're driving and driving, and I'm like, "Well, why are we going to St. Paul? You said you knew where I was going." "Oh yeah, I know. I no, no, no. Turn that meter off and turn this thing around and go." Yeah. So it's a lot to this, and it's an adjustment, and as you can tell, I'm not really keen on things that don't have a person that you can identify or somehow talk to about your issue. I
So
think
you're
that
not going
that's
to a fully automated McDonald's?
well. I mean, they had those in where you could get a sandwich in the machine. I mean, they had that where I used to work. You could get it. I didn't really eat
No,
them, but
no,
they
this ain't the sandwich in the machine. This ain't a vending machine sandwich. This is like a real McDonald's, and you got robots in the back flipping the burgers and putting your sandwich
Flipping
in
the
there,
burgers, making your pancakes, you know. Uh, now,
dropping the fries, taking the orders, the whole thing, just totally automated.
I haven't seen it. I mean, if that's happening now, I haven't been to one yet.
but
Where'd you go?
she said,
Would-
"Would you go?"
Well, the reality is, a lot of times they go back in the back room and bring your food out. You don't know how it, you don't know what's going on back there in some of these places. So eventually, I guess we're being trained for these things. They're bringing them in. They're showing and all this stuff. They're showing it on the cartoons. I watch cartoons with my little granddaughter. She's just ridiculous watching these cartoons. What's going on in these cartoons? The language that they're talking about. And then I have in my basement. You know how you have like a little stabilization pole. It's a pole, and she's dancing on the pole. I said, "Well,
Yeah,
what are
stop
you
with
doing?"
that.
"I'm twerking. I'm twerking." And we watched the cartoon, and they're doing that stuff on the cartoon. So they're continuing to program all these things into our minds from a young age.
Well, see, when I think about the automated McDonald's, I think about the violence that we see perpetuated through social media, but of people going into restaurants and attacking restaurant workers, and restaurant workers feeling like they have to be armed. But I don't know if that will be a fix to make the liability less or not, because people would definitely try to hijack an automated system if they think that they can get away with it.
Well, yeah, you know, uh, kind of addressing the restaurant issue because I worked as a chef and I worked for I retired working for a food chain, and it seems like everything became either automated or packaged.
Hmm.
You received things that were all of a sudden that were called portion sized. And I mean, come on, I mean, unless I mean, if you go to the average, restaurant, not talking about a fine dining restaurant or a buffet, there's somebody in the back that's opened up a package of them green beans and carrots. That's no that's them probably that meatloaf that you got, was pre-made with the gravy, and he put that in a pot until it got the proper temperature, and put it out there. How many restaurants do you know that serve real mashed potatoes?
Yeah, it's probably all prepackaged now
It's- I
because of
mean,
convenience.
because of convenience, and because we've accepted the trade-off.
Hmm.
I mean, Mr. Scott, do you remember, the girls with the roller skates that came around to your car and took your order?
Yeah.
They still have those at Sonic.
Yeah, yeah, I sure
Yeah,
do.
yeah.
I sure do. And I remember, my dad had this saying that he would say to people sometime, boy, he's clean as a Swift's chitlin. Look at him.
Yeah.
And so, but what I didn't know was there's a meat company, Swift, that supposedly made chitlins that you didn't have to go through all of the cleaning. It was supposed to have been so perfect. I mean, obviously, it wasn't, but that was the push. That's what, as clean as a Swift. So they would do the work. They would do the make it more appealing or make you more willing to buy it, make you that it's quicker. I mean, even like the microwave. Heck, when I was a kid, Thanksgiving dinner the next day and Christmas was better the next day because she cooked it. She didn't. It was recooked. It was recooked. And food tastes different when it is actually cooked as opposed to a microwave. To me, to this day, it does.
There was no such thing as healthy macaroni and cheese.
No. Ramen noodles. No, no. I still have never eaten ramen noodles.
Wait a minute now.
Well,
Ramen noodles is good.
yeah. Hey,
I don't care how
Ru-
rich I get.
Ru-
I'll
I'm
have
still
to
gonna
take
have
your word for it.
them
You-
chickens. I put a little. I make me my own little Marie Calendar meal. I'm talking about. I put a little chicken in there, put a little broccoli and cheese, mix it all up. Shoot, do what a whole
would you
meal.
see? Hey, ramen noodles in this hand, MREs in this hand. Think
I
about
think I take the ramen.
it. I'm telling you. See,
Now wait a minute, because
like,
with the
like, like,
MREs,
hey,
my
like,
favorite MRE was the roast beef or the beef stew.
yeah. See, like Grandma used to say. See, you ain't never been hungry, boy. You ain't never been hungry enough. Yeah,
Well, but all that is another thing. My grandmother made some applesauce. Okay, she made homemade applesauce with cinnamon and Oh, it was so good. Oh my goodness. And then one day I'm at home and mom gives me some applesauce from the can. I'm like, what? I want the other. She said, no, it's no more of that. That's all gone. You got so that's we have been conditioned to things that, and I think that the technology thing is just another advancement in that. Um,
So is it conditioning or just the evolution of life?
well, it's probably both. It's probably both because there's always going to be the old codgers that know what things were, and then they're going to continue to say, but eventually they fade away, and then this moves into the new. I think that's really what the whole plan is. I mean, they've got this thing all figured out. I mean, they've got it figured out.
My
Actuarials, why you got to wait 62 to get Social Security. They look at all these numbers. They have actuarial charts,
yeah,
insurance. They know all of these things. I mean, that's the same with your insurance rates. They tell you I started buying insurance. When you get older, it's going to be cheaper. But all of a sudden now it's not. Well, your house is more. If you don't buy this now, your house, you're underinsured. You got if it blows down, the chance of my house being burned down or hit by lightning is it me being hit by lightning. This is not going to happen here. All these things are not going to happen. But they condition you to pay
I
just
think
on the threat.
I think that some of it is subjective, because there are definitely incidents where what you never think would happen can happen, and you wouldn't want to be. So it's like a mixture. It's another one of those catch-22 things because it's good if you was to need it, but like you say, the likelihood of me needing it is normally slim. Now, when you come talk about car, auto insurance, something like that, especially in bigger cities, that's prevalent because it's always accidents or something going on. But in any other instance, I don't know if it's conditioning because I rest on the audio that they give you. I don't know if anybody will ever hear this moving forward, but when you go to the U.S. Capitol in D.C., and if you go and do the tour, when they first start out the tour, they make you listen to a video and they tell you the history or whatever. And the one thing that they said was that it was an experiment. And everything that I hear now is still just a continuation of an experimental move to figure out humans, how we move, how we operate. Now, are some things systematically positioned in order to think of the longevity? Sure, but they don't know how we will respond to anything until we respond that way. And then once they see how our response is, then they're able to allocate and kind of navigate and structure things according to the response of the people. Because if people reject it, then they're not gonna move forward with something, if that makes sense. But we're definitely living in a form of the matrix.
But for the most part, the things we're told are not the way they are. I'll never forget the first time I went to one of the marches or something in DC when I was in college. I went to Washington, D.C. I said, man, this is the ghetto. What in the heck? Where am I? This is the ghetto. People was holding signs outside the thing, sleeping out there, standing around. Not the pristine pictures that you saw, with nobody around. That was just a beautiful setting. No, it was nothing but chaos
That's
all
what
around
Los
there.
Angeles is to me.
And and Chocolate City is for real. Okay, Chocolate City is for real. Washington D.C. I mean, I was really hit over the head with what I saw in Washington D.C.
The way I experienced Los Angeles is the same way. I was very disappointed because I'm like, oh my God, like this is supposed to be nice, and
Hollywood.
like it's supposed like before you go to LA, you would think that LA has what we see in New York, like the feel, the vibration of what you see when you see New York. But I haven't been in New York yet. But I'm sure when I go to New York, hopefully I won't be disappointed. But there's a likelihood that what I see will not amount to what it looks like on a picture.
Well, New York will be different because of 9/11. So New York will be very much like the pictures that you see. I mean, there's a Disney store down in Times Square. Those used to be strip joints. So so New York, but out here in LA, you know, like you said, if you're not a part of that particular glamour scene, you would not know where to find
Hmm.
it. Because when you come off the freeway, just from San Diego, or you're coming down from the north, when you come off of Highway 1 or one of the freeways, you are immediately on the side of the street. There's people holding signs, do, donate this and that. There's people, you know,
It's very
uh,
ghetto.
yeah, well, no, because actually, I kind of take offense to that because we didn't even live like that in the ghetto.
Listen, it's kind of like
I mean,
it was
and I've lived in Harlem. I lived in New York. No, we had some pride in the ghetto.
It
You
was
know,
dirty. It was just like, I mean, it just did not give what I thought that I was going to get. Now, I will say, when I first went to LA, I was about 8 years old. It was the time where Boomerang was premiering. I literally seen the red carpet, Heavy D. I saw all these people. I actually met Heavy D that day. So it was that part of it was what I expected, but the reality of it, like in the daytime on a regular, just humbug, it is not anything like you would expect.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
once again, getting back to the technology and the automation part, you know, Mr. Scott, I gotta pull you in here because nowadays all you need is a drum machine, uh, clavinet, and maybe one or two sounds that you sampled, and you can make a whole album. Back in the day, you had to you had to find a drummer, you had to find a keyboard player, you had to find a guitar player, you had to find somebody to
Yeah.
do vocals. Hey, I can do all that from right here, right now.
Yeah.
So, Mr. Scott, what do you think about automation technology and the music industry?
Well, I think that, well, like I've said many times, and people know my feeling about the rap game. I detest it. I have total
This
detest.
ain't got
But,
nothing
But
to do with
but
Mr.
but
Scott.
but but but,
and
but,
I'm
but
saying that from the standpoint of what that is, all this violence, all this stuff that has been fueled and put on acceleration in our country. I think a lot of it comes from that. This stuff in the schools. Schools now are just a dangerous place to be. That's a danger. I used to love going to school. We would have sock hops and dances, and we would listen to the old Motown songs. And I loved going to school. But so now it's a scary place. And as far as the music, when you listen to all the commercials and things now, what do you hear? You hear old school R&B. You hear, and a lot of it is not the original people. A lot of it is mixed and matched and put together.
sampled.
It's sampled, and however you want to say it, it is not there. I have listened to some things, and I pull up my Spotify. I said, "Who is that? Sounds like Ohio Players. It can't be. Oh no, this is Mix Max Mock. Somebody Mix Max Mock somebody in the studio that pulls all this stuff together and makes it sound like." And they can enhance the sounds. Actually, they can take those analog sounds and they can enhance these things and make them sound more prominent through the whole process that they use. So I think it's bad because you rarely get the real virtual. You don't see Oscar Peterson. You don't see the Jimmy Smiths. You don't see the real innovators that were getting into these instruments and showing people. I mean, a lot of the things that these innovators did, and I'm talking about a lot of people that went to school with my dad on the south side of Chicago, like Eddie Harris and oh God, Nat Cole or all these guys lived around the south side of Chicago. All these things are in the fake books, songs that they wrote, people that couldn't even read music. The great song Misty by Errol Gardner, he couldn't read a note of music, but he played that song and it was transcribed, and it's a standard now. And I think that's what we lose by the technology in the music. We lose from the heart, from the feeling, and even the initial rap people, even the Tupacs and this was the initial feeling, the pain, the things you feel. I just say one song, BB King, Why I Sing the Blues. Well, they brought us over here on a ship, and there was a man standing over me with a whip. I mean, this is real stuff, and I think we miss a lot of that with the technology, and just one person sitting in a room putting together a beat and mixing this, mixing that. I think we lose. I think we lose out on the technology of it, and it's really funny when I watch things on Saturday Night Live. The music guests. Sometimes I watch it just to see the music guests, and to me, it's hilarious. I mean, these are people that can play one chord, and they're up there playing. It's people say that I'm a hater, and no, I like the art of it. I mean, and I think that's the art of it is what comes from the person, the individual. That's what makes it art.
Now,
Can't computerize art. Can't art is not computer. Computer can't do it. Computer is not a is thinking, heart beating thing.
I think that it is these are kind of subjective subjects because there are people that do a whole lot of damn samples. I hate when people do too many samples, or it's like the way P Diddy just keep doing sample, like he did so many samples. He don't really produce nothing. He just sampling some other person's stuff and making it sound good. But I don't think that again, you're gauging the proper um, source, because although a lot of things within the music industry are is computerized now, there's still somebody that is making those melodies in some cases. Now, every beat isn't computer generated. Every melody is not computer generated, but a lot of them are. And but it's like two things. You got people that still play instruments, still play piano, still really doing the actual instruments, but then you have a lot of people that's learning it on these new mixing machines where they don't have to actually play all these things. You can get a keyboard with the right sounds on it and you can sound like you got anything going on. But it takes a skill to really learn how to be a musician and not how to just be a beat maker, or how to, do the bare minimum of the music creation process. But all of it isn't just automated. All of it isn't taken away from it. Definitely has nothing to do with the rap game. It's not the rappers that's doing
No,
it.
I think where Mr. Scott is talking about, and where I see it myself, having family members within the music industry, it's not so much the individual. Well, it is partially has to do with the individual artist, but it also has to do when you start talking about numbers. Well, before you have a hit, you have to reach a certain number in order for in order for you to get in the music industry. The music industry, even though it's still talent is what fuels it. It's the statistics and how many albums or views you can get on YouTube that actually promotes your music. Very few. I mean, maybe it's not quite like it was in our era, and it'll never be like that again, Mr. Scott. But
Yeah.
I mean, when you start talking about Drake, well, okay, Drake went through a certain process in order for him to get to be Drake. It wasn't that there was an artist out there better than Drake or just as good as Drake, but Drake knew how to use the technology as well as his connections. He got known, but it's not in the way that we think of it, where you have a person out there shaking hands and making that kind of tour. No, those days are over with, and that's, I believe, why technology is going to drive everything, because technology just reads numbers. It does not read personalities or circumstance.
Well, Drake. Well, he's a perfect example of the foolishness. You know, these people call me since my brother doesn't play anymore. Some of the people that he worked with will call me to do something every now and then. And okay, the song "Call Me on My Cell Phone." I'm like, what? What is this? And so I'm listening to this. It's nothing to it. I mean, it's just 3 notes, and it's just called me on my cell phone, and that's the song. People were jumping around, and I'm like,
It's so much more to that song than just call me on the cell phone.
it's so. Music has always been to me a thing about taste and what it is you like and and I think the variety now is just you have to really seek it out and search it. The things that that are really put out there and projected are for a reason to make money, period. And the more they play it, the more they can get it, the more you hear it, the more it seems to generate more income, generate more plays, generate more um, money for hopefully for the artist. And that's another thing. A lot of these things are once they're out there, there's a lot of brouhaha about artists being able to really even collect their rights.
I mean, well, in today's day and age, it's a little bit different when it comes to your musical rights because everything is so at the hands of the artist. So artists don't have to jump through so many hurdles when it comes to labels. But James, you're exactly right when it comes to the numbers and the stats. And instead of artist development, a person could be a horrible artist and have one viral song and then end up with a record deal and not know what to do with it, not know what type of music to create. And the only way that they're signing away their rights now, Mr. Scott, is if they still go into a label or looking for a deal. A lot of artists aren't sufficient enough to not need a deal. And then other ones aren't mentally stable enough to I don't want to say mentally stable, like they're crazy or something, but it's an
Mhm.
instability to go and sign away all of your publishing or all of your, any type of deal where you're getting a 360 where they eating off of you in every way, shape, form, or fashion, and you're barely eating anything based on the contract that you signed. So now a lot of artists do a lot of shows, not because they just want to go tour. They doing shows because that's where their money is
Where the
because
money
they
is.
didn't signed away everything else. So in some aspects of that part, things haven't changed, but the automation of being able for anybody being able to upload and make a page on a streaming service and put their music out there gives them the opportunity to put the ball in their court. But even with streaming services, you're not even getting as much money per stream per listen. You're really just getting, pennies on a nickel for those streams. How you doing?
Hello, Miss Sims. How you doing?
Greetings, all. I'm fine.
Hello,
Uh,
hello, hello.
Hi. Haven't seen you in a while,
uh,
Anthony, but good to
uh,
see you.
so, Dr. Casey, and Mr. Scott, while we're talking about automation and the future, and we're talking about the music industry in particular, and I got a little insight, and I'd like to know how you people think about it because uh, my younger brother knows a lot of underground musicians, and a lot of them made deals using crypto money. So now that deal that was worth whatever amount it was in crypto money is now nothing. So if we're talking about automations and iRobot and all that, what are we going to use for money during this particular age of automation? Because they've already taken, they've, for the most part, they've taken paper money out of your hands. Everything is done with plastic now. So the days of snatching old lady's purse to get a few dollars, that don't work no more because she ain't got nothing in there but her EBT card and a credit card. so 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 how do we handle the financial transactions and hope that they don't blow up like crypto money, Dr. Casey?
Well, let me ask Miss Sims a question on that. Just one question. Do you happen to bank at a Wings Financial?
No.
Okay.
Well, what are you calling wings? I'm not familiar with. Is that
It's like a bank. It used to be the Hennepin County Credit Union, but they call it Wings now.
No, I don't.
Okay. Because what we were talking about earlier, my sister banks at one in South Minneapolis, and they don't have any tellers anymore.
Oh,
Everything is all automated, no tellers. It's all
huh.
self-service.
That's not good. To me, that's not good.
It wasn't good for her either. So she
No.
has to drive across town where they have tellers. But what they told her is that they're going to expand that. That eventually the plan is they're going to go out without tellers. I'm going to just go in there to see how it works. But I don't know how it. Everything you do is automated. There's no tellers in there to do any of your banking. Apparently, you could go in and I would imagine cash a check and put the check in, and then just.
I would imagine I would be curious about that also. I imagine it would be just an expansion on the ATM machines. Uh, but wow, that's that's scary.
But
Especially talking to your money. Just an example of last August, September when there was my one of my credit cards was compromised, and I had to go to the bank. Talk to a man. I wanted to go to the bank manager, and I did. And if you don't have that people, it's taken quite a while to get things back in order. So if you don't people to people, gee whiz.
Well, and that's to me, that's the trust thing. I mean, how you trust the machine, how you trust. Just like when you call in the places, you push
Yeah,
one, push this, you push the wrong thing, you got to start all over again.
yeah. Uh,
and,
So I'm not in it, but I guess it's coming.
and not only speaking to that, if you call into one, they now have a system online where if you think the line is too long, leave this number, put in your number, and it'll call you back.
mm-hmm.
So how many times and to how many companies are you willing to put your number into and let them have access to your phone? I mean, I don't even have to go to my bank or credit union. I can pull up an app. I can transfer money. I can apply for a loan. I can do everything from right here. The only thing I have to do in some cases, if depending on how large the transaction is, I don't even have to put a signature there.
Mm,
Even your signature is automated.
yeah.
So, like I said, what happens when money doesn't become money, a physical thing? You know what a $20 bill is. Franklin is 100. What happens when the only money is the name of that institution on a piece of plastic?
Mm, mm. That's I can't answer that, but Mr. Scott has struck my curiosity. I bank at Wells Fargo. So one of the things I'm going to ask them, are they headed that way to see what kind of answer I get from them?
Well, yeah, I banked with Wells Fargo when I first came out here. I mean, you can just look at the amount of automation that's been put into their system just since 2003 to
Now
know
I do
what
online banking. I do do online banking. Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, online banking. When had you heard of that in even 1998?
Yeah.
And these are things like you say, Dr. Casey. we have become accustomed to because they're convenient.
Yeah, well, not like making deposits. I make deposits with this. You know, you take a picture, you just
Yep.
take a picture of the thing, take the front, the back, put the thing, and bam, it's right there. I don't have to go to no bank. I don't have to do, you know.
See?
So some of the things are convenience. I mean, I like the convenience of that. I don't have to go. I mean, I can take a check and boom, it's there, right there. I don't have to go nowhere. I don't have to get dressed and go downtown or none of that. So
And
those
James,
things are good.
and James used the right word. We're conditioned. You condition people in a certain way when you want control of them or to do things until something goes wrong. Now, when something goes wrong with my money, I want to talk to somebody in person because if a machine does with my money, and here I
And
am.
so it'd be like Dad would say to make more noise than the alligator did when the pond went dry. You know,
It's another way of remaining anonymous too. It's kind of like when the cell phones first kind of came out, and I was riding the bus a few years ago when they started becoming popular. And I happened to look. I was waiting for the bus, and I happened to look up, and I saw two people walking down the street side by side, and they weren't talking to each other. They were on their cell phones, and that struck me. How how sad in regards to, hey, you're right there with somebody. Normally you would have a conversation with you, but both of them are on the cell phone. So a lot of the automation is really taking the people thing out of the socialization right out of it. But automation is allowing the four of us to talk to each other across thousands of miles. So you really have to put some thought into it. And automation could be good and serve you well, and just the opposite.
See, but like you said, Miss Sims, all this is good until my money comes up missing,
Yeah.
or until there's a problem with my money. Now I want to talk to somebody.
yeah. Well, we had a bad winter so far.
Mm.
A lot of snow,
Mm-hmm.
and so I ordered a snowblower online,
Mm-hmm.
and so I ordered it. And then something said, check the order. And then it said, it doesn't come with, I wanted a battery one. I didn't want to fool with no more
Right.
gas. I got one in the garage, gas, fooling around with mixing gas and it's cold outside. That's bunch of foolishness. So I ordered this. So then I noticed, I said, well, no battery comes with it. Okay. And so I said, well, what the heck? And so I had to order the battery separate. And they said, well, we're out of the battery. And so here I'm sitting with a snowblower and I can't do nothing with it. So I sent it back. Okay. And actually I could take it back because it was Home Depot. So then I bought something called a shovel, snow shovel online
Yeah.
for like $50. Okay. I have yet to get it. I've ordered this thing a couple months ago and it was a scam. It was somebody somewhere in China. I said, oh, good Lord. It was somewhere in China, and I tried to follow the tracking, and they had all these XYZ letters and things in there. And so then I sent an email, and they said, oh, yeah, you're going to get it. And that was a month ago. So I sent another email, and now the email is defunct. Everything's defunct. So I got to go through the bank, see if I can get my money back. But that's another thing about technology. See, the order, I had no idea from China. I had no idea because everything looks just like it's just right here in town almost. Looks like it's just so beautiful. Just looked like showing so a white man up there shoveling and doing all that. It was scam.
Yeah. Even with Amazon,
that's prevalent too online.
Even with Amazon, I through the years I've noticed there's been a difference. When I order, if you order something and it says it's going to take weeks, by the end of the month, I found out that it's coming from overseas or something like that.
Yeah, you don't know where it's coming from.
You have to be very careful nowadays.
With Amazon, you can ask, or you can
Yeah, they're reputable. They're
and,
reputable.
and they'll usually tell you that it's coming from China or somewhere like that. But once again, you know we slowly, I think, see things disappearing uh, from our everyday life. You know, for instance, you can go past. You used to be able to go past the field, and you'd see a lot of people out there working, maybe picking this or picking that or whatever. You know, nowadays you see a few people out there, but they're following a machine. They're following machines, and when it comes to everyday life, we are expected to put so much trust in machines and systems that when we see actual people doing things, uh, uh, I'm sure we all go to the grocery store, and every grocery store has a self checkout line. All those used to be people that had jobs. Each one of those machines was meant to take place of X number of people. Those machines were put there for the express purpose of
Doing away
making.
with it. Yeah, doing away with it.
But that no. That's not what they told you. It was to make your life
Yeah,
easier
that's in the beginning.
and
Yeah,
faster.
yeah.
It was it. Nobody told you about that these people were going to lose jobs. Nobody said anything about that. It was about the quickness and convenience.
Right. And I thought of that, and I also thought of what you're saying. Uh, th- they were telling us up front to condition us to think about that, while the ultimate plan was to do away with the person, with the human being, thereby, and whoever had this bright idea, somewhere along, money's always involved. Uh, Ultimately, you do away with a human being. You don't have to pay. You don't have to pay them insurance or taxes or whatever. And so the ultimate plan was to do away with the human being themselves, but that to sell us, you're right. They're and to condition us to want that and to use it, they have to come up with a line that we're going to buy and do.
Sure, and it makes us do their work. I
Yeah.
mean, I go to the self checkout and I get a lot of things like some vegetables or apples or and it's not in a package. I put it in a bag, get just as many as I want. But then I don't know how to do that. I mean, but then apparently there's some numbers or something on the thing that you got to type in numbers. See, now it's getting to be work. See, if I can at least just scan it and just scrolls across the thing, well, that's one thing. But now I got to type in stuff. I got to look at the thing and type in No, they getting you to do their work. And
Yeah, they
so
suckered you. They're suckering us into for us it's convenient. Then we end up doing
doing their work.
making money.
They're getting the money.
Money. Yeah.
Dr. Kaci, I was just speaking of the self checkout machines where they were sold to us as being convenient. No one said, told you, that each one of those machines was to take the place of X number of employees. You know, that wasn't how it was sold. Well, how it was sold is, hey, you don't have to stand in line. You can get in and out quicker, and it's more convenient. You know, So go ahead. I don't want to take over. You're commentating here. Go ahead. What's going? Go ahead. What's happening? We can't hear you.
Can't hear you.
She's muted. You're muted. Okay, I think you're off now. Talk to us now. You're still muted. We can't hear you. See, she got all them bells and whistles.
Yeah, we can't. We see your mouth working. We see your mouth working, but we can't hear nothing.
And bottom line, if we don't stop and pause and think of what's going on, we're really doing away with ourselves. Really doing away with ourselves. And sometimes I think of way back when maybe in the 70s and things like that, when they had these Star Trek and Star Wars, when they had all these futuristic stuff. A lot of the things we're doing now.
We were talking about that earlier. You know, with the things we saw on the Jetsons, all those little supposed.
Come on back in here, Dr. Kaci. You better unmute yourself. I don't know what you think you're doing over there. What?
Yeah, can't hear her.
This might be something new, Mr. Scott.
Well, see, this is another thing. Technology. Technology. See, technology. See, this is another thing about technology. See, when it breaks down, see, it leaves you stranded, leaves you hanging.
That's right.
You know, we're talking about Teslas and all that. All of a sudden, the sun don't shine. All of a sudden, it's a cloudy day, and you can't go nowhere. See, so I mean.
I can remember. I can remember back when
it takes technology to keep a woman quiet.
One of the things that made me so mad, and even today, way back in the beginning when they started using the cash machines, the ATM machines, they used to have money in it. The denominations used to include 1s, 5s, and 10s, and it was real convenient. Nowadays, up here, you can't get anything lower than a 20.
I remember 10s. I don't remember the 1s. But
I remember 1s, 5s, and 10s, and then they start for here again. It's something about convenience, or maybe they didn't say anything till you went there and tried to get them out, and it didn't. They didn't come out. From 1s and 5s and 10s didn't come out. And then a few years back, when I was taking some classes at the university, that was the only place at that time that I could get a 5 on campus. But it was on campus, you get a 5 out. But I don't know what it is now. But that's it. If you don't, and it's like, and I rarely see a penny anymore.
Well, yeah, I mean, I went to the ball game the other night, me and my brother, and I was going to buy it. Went to the stand to get something. I handed them cash. They looked at me like I was crazy. Mm-hmm. You know, they take no cash. You know, you got to give them a card. All they think is cash. They don't handle no cash at the concessionaire there. And then even when I got the ticket, a friend of mine sent the ticket, and it was on my phone somewhere. And I'd talk about apps. And I said, well, you know, so I had to go find the thing, and I didn't know what, and so I had to go get the guy there to look in there and verify that I actually had a ticket, because it's all on the phone. Everything is electronic. You go there, the whole thing is electronic. You get the ticket, got to have a credit card to get a drink or anything. So
have you tried to get a Lyft or an Uber? Do you know?
No, I haven't signed up for it yet.
Well, unless you have a valid credit card, you're not getting a ride. Taxi, I mean, I don't know of a taxi or a taxi company that takes cash.
Mhm.
When you get an Uber, and maybe it's different in in your town, but when you get an Uber, the Uber tells you how much it is, and when that driver comes and picks you up, the only thing that you have to add is your tip if you're giving him one.
Mm.
But let's see if Dr. Casey's back here.
I,
Uh oh.
can you hear
See?
me now?
Yes we can.
So
Yeah.
it got to be something going on with my computer. I restarted my desktop because
Well, see,
technology.
this is the perils of technology. This, this is the perils. You're stranded. We heard, we saw your mouth working, but we didn't hear anything.
Listen, the whole time I'm getting upset because y'all keep talking over me, and I'm thinking like, why is they not listening to me? Because I keep saying stuff, and then they just keep on talking. Whole
Yeah.
time y'all couldn't hear me.
No. So go ahead. I guess you're gonna have to reiterate those thoughts for us.
I
See,
don't even remember what I was
this
saying.
proves the point. This proves the whole point right here.
But this isn't the automation though. This is just technology in general. The automation is the robots, the Siris, the Alexas, and all of those that are being used now in order to suffice for us. Now, I was saying that I like self checkout. I think it's because I have more control over what I'm doing. When it comes to leaving out the grocery store, it's never a shorter line. Well, now it is because they have the car only lines, but it is a lot more convenient. But right now, I feel like we're moving from being worker bees as humans into a state to where people will have to find purpose. Now, I think it's going to be hard for a lot of people because people are not used to being purposeful. They're used to working, they're used to being busy and making themselves busy more so than having a definite understanding of why they're doing what they're doing.
But Dr. Casey, aren't politicians telling us that people don't want to work? All they want are free handouts?
I mean, now, if people could choose not to work and still be financially stable, people would choose not to work and still be financially stable. But they've made living in general expensive. We got to pay for water. Water is a natural resource. We shouldn't have to pay to be able to sustain a decent living. Something should be a part of like life. You get born, it should be a package deal. A certain shit that should just come along with it, because we know that you need these things, but to have to pay for water, even food to some extent. Now the luxuries of food, that's one thing, but just to be able to eat, like right now schools are back charging for lunch. Well, what happened to all the kids that didn't have the ability to pay for lunch or didn't have access to meals? They are really making it more stressful for the parents, especially after going 2.5 years without having to pay for any lunch.
But I think I sent out a question when you were talking about the uh, Elon Musk
Hmm.
and his proposal to pay to give everyone a stipend. And I was thinking, about what you said about people and how we are driven or that desire to be a worker bee
That's
because
conditioning.
there are certain bees in the hive called drones,
Hmm.
and their specific purpose is to breed. They do nothing whatsoever for the safety of the hive, the maintenance of the hive, nothing whatsoever. They're stagnant except for breeding. So, do you think that humans are destined to go down the same path if we are not in that perpetual worker bee? Um,
I think
Motion.
that we've been tricked. This is where we've been tricked at. We've been tricked to thinking that life is less than if there isn't any if you're not working. Like if you don't work, you don't eat. That slave mentality, that worker, I need to have a job and work somewhere so I can feel productive, comes from that slave mentality where we had to work literally because they was going to kill us if we didn't work. They wouldn't feed us if we didn't work. That was not the way that life was supposed to be lived. And that worker bee mentality is what makes people more distant. It makes people more depressed, more lethargic about their own life and responsibilities because their excuse is, I have to work, I have to do all these things. So when it comes to actually finding purpose and getting to know yourself or addressing your issues, it goes out the door because, like with alcoholism, people go to work to escape. So if you're going to work, if you're using that to escape your reality, then it defeats the purpose and it makes it harder for you to live and grow and evolve the way that we're supposed to as humans.
Good evening,
Life.
Brother Williams.
And also,
All power to people, y'all.
when we do receive grants,
Uh,
I will be
uh,
in charge of all of the post requirements and all the
so,
necessary documents
so
to the grantor.
I
I
think
did put together a
I think we
Somebody.
I think we have you in the
of a
background there,
budget,
Brother Williams.
creating an annual budget.
I can see y'all. Can you see me?
We don't
No,
Yeah,
we can hear your audio.
we're hearing your audio, I believe.
Oh, I'm sorry. Let me cut that down. Yeah, I'm trying to end another call. I apologize.
It's okay.
So go ahead, Dr. Casey.
Um,
This is the Dr. Casey show. I'm just here.
Yeah, I heard.
I really it slipped my mind what I was saying, but it was about the automation and the state of needing to be more human than to just be thinking that our whole purpose is to get a job. A lot of people think that our lives are just getting a job, working, paying bills, and then dying. But if you introduce purpose into people's lives, then it shifts and changes how we view things because it's no competition if you're living based on purpose because nobody can be a better you than yourself.
Yeah, but this whole automation, this whole taking away the people. I mean, look at, and we've seen this coming into play now, but we've also seen all this shooting. We're seeing all this totally desensitized to, um, this one just the other day. Well, what was it? Yesterday at a ballroom in where I think that was that in California?
Out here
No,
in
it's in LA.
California.
Yep.
Someone just comes in and just starts shooting people, just starts killing people. I mean, I think that as we get away from the people, from the feeling, from the thoughts, from the, I think it's now we're just seeing it explode. We're just seeing schools aren't a safe place. Things, Mall of America, not a safe place. I mean, all these spaces where you could go, theme parks or things that you want to do to unwind, now you have to be on guard. And I think some of it traces back to the desensitized and disrespect that really comes from that for the human element, for the human life. I think that's a downside, a huge downside to what we're experiencing now. Yeah, I mean, you might agree. I mean, I could throw some of the rap stuff in there too right now, but I'm not going to do
No,
that right
no,
now. But
don't do it. Don't do it. Let me interject in there. Well, we have to recognize that goes into it has to go into the basically the emotional instability that comes with having an instant gratification environment. And so with the advent of technology in the pace of social media moving the way it does, it it kind of creates a situation where a lot of the, especially the youth, are not able to connect from an emotional standpoint the way they did in the past with one another, and we kind of lose the ability to be able to deal with rationalization and patience, research, and anything that has to do with, you know, an emotional longevity as it applies to picking up and learning and addressing or dealing with one another. Because through dealing with computers, or should we say artificial intelligence, and it responding the way you want it to respond, as opposed to being like a real person, which will go back and forth with you or oppose you. Because keep in mind, when they deal with these I forgive the terminology, but it has to do with, it's like a bot, some type of chat bots and stuff like that that a lot of the kids are into. Those things have general conversations with you and pleasant conversations with you. In fact, they write the code to where it can't, a lot of times where it can't curse, it can't do anything to hurt your feelings and stuff like that. So they get caught up in this situation where they think that everything has to be pleasant and everything has to be to my whim. So if I ask a question, I get a direct answer, as opposed to getting told, man, you need to look that up, or getting told to go pick up this book. The kind of things that when you interact with a human, it forces you to utilize more of your own willpower. So now you have a generation that misses out on that level of personal growth. And then when they're thrust into situations that create any bit of adversity for them, they go from zero to explosion right away. So one of the downsides of what we're seeing in this industry and in moving forward in technology is that human component and that aspect of social interaction. And I think that's what creates a lot of that situation. I don't think that's the case with that last shooting with the cat being 72 years old, but in general.
Yeah, he was just an angry old man.
And tapping on to what Robert's saying as he was speaking, I thought how as a society in general, we don't value each other. We don't value each other as human beings, and the importance to us as human beings of interacting with each other in talking to each other, seeing each other, just that in person thing. And I think sometimes even nowadays, I don't know a lot about the school system now. The children are much older. Um, when my children were smaller, what was the electric company in Sesame Street and things like that, you had people. If they were on TV, it was people. People teaching you the alphabet and this and that. Nowadays, just looking at some kids maybe on TV and things like that, the you have cartoon characters. You don't have people. You kind of like have cartoon characters in some of them. And nowadays, back then, if you had somebody misbehaving and doing negative things, it was animals. It was kind of like animals. Nowadays, it's the little bit that I've seen, it's like human beings shooting each other and shooting people in blood and gore and things like that. So that works on your psyche and your conditioning and things like that. And are I think we're getting evidence of how now evidence in person how now that those things are playing into our children's and things, whatever, and how they think about guns and shooting each other. The 6-year-old
Yeah,
thing.
6-year-old shooting a teacher.
And
6-year-old shooting a teacher. I mean, we.
they're
I
learning from adults. They're learning from adults. Somebody has you don't they don't
well,
come in the world, knowing all of this. They have to be taught and seen. I'm sorry, Mr. Scott.
no, I'm sorry. I don't want to interrupt you, but
Go
like
ahead.
I was saying, we talked about this earlier, and it's like I was saying with my granddaughter, watching these cartoons, driving in the car, we're listening to music, and all of a sudden this Lizzo, I guess it was a rap or whatever. They're talking about the D and we're going to do this. I'm like, what the heck is this? I'm turning this thing off here. My granddaughter, she's dancing. I'm like, no, 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 no. We're not having that. But I'm just saying, as when we get home, I watch these cartoons with her, and what's going on in these cartoons is, I mean, she's learning to twerk. I said, no, you don't do it. No, no. And so these things are starting at a young age. This desensitized this thing at a young age, and I think it's just it's an assault. It's an assault on
now, Mr. Scott,
thinking.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Oh, Mr. Scott, now you know Millie Jackson used to sing all types of foolishness.
Well, I think Millie Jackson, my girl. I went to see Millie Jackson.
Look at that.
Millie Jackson.
He get a bag.
That's,
Hey, and don't talk about Diana Summer. See, they don't want to hear about that either. Come on now.
Y'all don't want to talk about Aretha Franklin taking the panties off and throwing them in the audience. You know.
I mean,
well, you're missing the point. Now you're missing the point here.
That is the point.
I'm gonna come to your aid, Mr. Scott. Back then, I like the old time jazz singers, and through the years, real deep jazz. You lose me, but even old school songs and things like that. Those sexuality and
it was double entendres. It wasn't just this overt the D and all this stuff. No, that wasn't. It was double entendres.
No, what about Carter? I'm gonna keep throwing names out there because I remember that. I be stroking. Yeah.
Look, that man couldn't see. That man was blind.
But he knew what he was stroking, though, didn't he? He might not could see, but he knew the point. Anyway, see, y'all got me started out here.
Well, let me say this. I think what we're discussing though has to do with the access. Because the thing about it at that point is dealing with technology and the way it is now, the access is so easy. And so even speaking on the point I was making earlier, like right now through social media, you can block somebody, you can delete them, you can remove them, you can unfriend them, and you have this persona that you create in terms of your image, and then everybody has this virtual image that they create, and this is how they want to be seen. And so you're shielded behind a false reality. Whereas in real life social interaction, I can't unfriend you and not have to deal with you on an everyday basis. So when it comes to a real life human engagement, you got to learn how to deal with a bully. You have to learn how to deal with folks you don't like. You have to learn how to exist in an environment to where, you know what, we got to just figure this out, as opposed to just being able to eliminate that on a social media footprint. Because of that, again, because of that ability to just instantly turn things on and off, what happens is it creates emotional immaturity. So I don't know how to deal with challenges or things that I don't agree with, because I'm used to being able to just remove it from my profile or remove it from my view and hide things. Whereas again, real life social interaction, if somebody say something bad about you, you got to figure out how you're gonna address that and how you're gonna deal with that on, you know, in the realm of what's going on with your peer group and so forth. So these things get replaced, and so you have a whole generation of people that are growing up without that direct interaction that is really needed for us to develop critical thinking and critical conscious skills to deal with one another on a day-to-day basis. And so I go from zero to snap, zero to explosion a whole lot easier, because I don't have to do that in that virtual environment.
I don't know if I agree. I don't disagree with you often, but I don't know if I agree with that one. And the reason is because what we are used to is tolerating disrespect. We are used to people treating us any type of way, and we happen to take it because we feel like we can't cut people off. But in the reality is, in real life, the same way you can delete, block, and stop fooling with people online, you can do the same exact thing in person. Because the moment that somebody disrespects you, you can move yourself from being around that environment. Now, if your environment is a
I'm
work,
talking about children. We're talking about the children now, because remember that in when back when I went to school, when there was a bully, I just had to learn how to deal with it. Now with these no tolerance and the way they go about it now with the council culture, it ain't the same way. You don't have that situation where you have to learn how to adjust and people have to get along or not get along, but they have to deal with one another as well as what the youth go through right now.
but
Like for
what
instance, with the way you raise your child. If I were to spank, if you spank your children now, they can talk about suing you. They can talk about calling child protective custody. So they have to learn. Whereas in our generation, you had to learn to obey your parents,
you
or you
had
had
to
to deal with
learn
the
to live with
consequences.
dysfunction. We had to learn to live with abuse. We had to learn to live with dysfunction. We had to learn to be okay with being treated however somebody wanted to treat us like that if they wanted to treat us badly. Right now, we're in a generation and a time, even as young people, where we don't have to tolerate people just, oh, that's just who they are. No, if that's who you are, you will not be in my life. And that is not bad for children. It's almost like people saying, well, I was beat when I was coming up, so if you get beat, you gonna be all right because I was all right. No, just because we had to live with it and went through it, don't mean that we should endure it. It's almost like we're saying, well, our grandparents were slaves, so it'll be all right if you go through some of the same type of things that slaves went to because that's gonna be good for your character. That's not
Well,
good
I
for your
I I,
character
I
because
I
of
get
what
what you're
you lived
saying.
through.
I get what you're saying, but the whole aspect of what is missed out on has to do with learning how to cope with situations as opposed to going from zero to explosion.
But
Because
coping,
that goes into why people are so quick to pick up a gun and
what is
why
coping?
they kill each other so much.
Coping is what you do with dysfunction. You don't have to cope
I
in
get
an
that.
environment that's healthy. You don't have to cope in situations and encounters where you teach people how to respect you. We're dealing with two different generations. We're talking about an older generation that whatever somebody older said, just because they older than you, then you have to take it. And that's not the type of children that
Oh
we're
hell no!
raising.
Oh hell no! Now I got to disagree with you because boy, look. Oh hell no! No, if you disrespected me, mom, dad, there was consequences to
But
pay.
they're
I,
not.
I I might not want to accept the consequences. That's the reason why I took my happy ass out and ran away. But there was always an alternative. You did not have to accept abuse if you didn't want to. It was just the
If
way
you
that
want to
you
live in
handled
your
it.
household, yes, you did.
No, I
If you
didn't.
wanted to
No,
be
no, no,
around those
no,
people,
no, no, no.
But
I did. That's why I left that household because I had the choice to either stay there and do whatever, like you say, be treated like a slave or whatever, or do what I thought was best for me. Now, I know, we might be getting a little bit off the subject here, but I do think that every generation has its share of sheep and its share of wolves. And you can actually, whether you choose to be a wolf at age 6, whether you choose to be a wolf at age 12, whether you choose to be a wolf at age 14 or whatever, it is because all of a sudden you that sheep mentality wasn't for you. Now, what I'm thinking is like when you start talking about iRobot and things like that, and where we are talking about giving machines emotions and being able to deal with them as we would a counterpart. Now, I think that we are being ingrained with an acceptance to technology to whereas the transition will be just as easy as it was supposedly for the slave, the free man. But we've also seen that once we become slaves to technology, machines, or whatever, there are consequences for us to pay, whether they are individual consequences or collective consequences.
Yeah, but see what we're missing here to me is we have become slaves to the government. We have become see there were more controls in our homes, in our neighborhoods than there are today. Because see now it's very quick to child protection. It's very quick for the government to come in. And if you get in there and you're under court orders, the court tells you what to do instead of what the family tells you to do. So, and a couple of things with that. We've got away from the family being able to do that, being able to do things the way they know how to do, as opposed to you might not agree with it, you might not, but if you have to depend on the family structure to take care of you for your food, your shelter, for your clothes, well, there's something that you have to do too. Maybe you do have to listen. Maybe you do have to do the things that you're required to do to be successful in that environment. So you can't just say, okay, now the kids can just pick up the phone and say, oh, mom, my mom said something to me. I mean, and two people that don't get along over, they may have multiple kids with multiple people and they don't like what's going on. They'll just call child protection on you. They'll just see, they've taken away the idea of you are a parent, you have responsibilities. And so, regardless, the kid, there's going to always be rebellious kids. That's not going to stop. That's always going to happen. But I think that the control has been taken out of the family structure. They don't have the option of being in charge of what you want to do with your kids and your family. There's always this harbinger of the government. And believe me, I worked in child protection for a long time. And I've seen how the deterioration of this came about, where I would meet with the parents and the parents were worse than the kids. So how is there going to be any structure? Because nobody has any. Nobody's has structure. So I think the whole thing of someone else doing something for you, someone else doing everything that coming up, you had to do it yourself. You had to do like my grandfather, everything he did on this house, he did it. He laid the concrete. He changed the roof. He fixed the windows. He did everything. But now the world is so different. And this collision of thought and this collision of technology, I think, is what's causing a lot of this confusion. That's why I see ball of confusion.
I think a couple of things that are being left out from what Dr. Kaci has said and what Mr. Scott is saying is that the progression and people's behavior. Like I heard Dr. Kaci, talking about some things that went on in the home. Maybe the abuse that was happening behind closed doors, and people say that people say, "Well, I got switched this and that." Wow, that may at some levels that was discipline, but then it would, in some cases, in some homes, it was abusive, and it remained behind the door scenes. Didn't come out, but there did come a point where all the abuse start coming, the family abuse and abusing kids start coming out of the house. It became more public. People, the general public, start seeing the frequency of it and the severity of it, and it went from behavior to, we could clearly see it went from behavior to abuse and things like that. Then people stepped in and tried to deal with how we're going to deal with that. Various people came up with various ideas and how best to deal with it. And maybe some of the things we were doing, thinking of, or put in place to deal with it has gotten to the point where Mr. Scott is talking of. So we went from one extreme to the other, and there has to be a happy medium somewhere along those, and it a lot of, I think, depends on the individual behaviors and how you think of things, because those things are still going on. There are a lot of children that are still being abused behind closed doors, and a lot of times we don't find out about it until, as James is saying, and that depends on the child's behavior and where they were, until maybe the child grows up and gets a certain age, and then they start telling it themselves and are able to run away, et cetera, et cetera. And then there's still things going on where, as Mr. Scott is saying, that he was part of the child protection thing, and it just went from one thing to the other. And so the system, I think the system now is recognizing, hey, some things we need to, and us trying to do better and different. Some of the things we're supposed to do isn't working out to be the best thing for the child, for the family, for the health and welfare of everybody. So a lot of that's in there too, between the two conversations, the two ways, the things that they were speaking of.
Mm-hmm.
Well, let me say this. So, to me, what we're looking at is basically, in talking in the past, we're dealing with a certain level of maturity that was gained through self-sufficiency, because again, kind of like what Anthony was talking about, when we were in the mind frame of being able to do things more for ourselves. It's like the current generation now doesn't cook or clean or do a lot of the things that that we may normally have done by ourselves. Like I mentioned in the past, where because I was a latchkey kid, a lot of the things that I did at 5 years old, kids are just not starting to do when they turn 13 and 14. But that is being replaced with a technologically more advanced mindset that the children have. So it's like either you exchange your self-sufficiency and learn how to deal with things on that level, whereas what we did, but now they're more smart in terms of how they use technology.
So
But
the question is, were they supposed to be? Were you supposed to be doing those things at 5? Because
no,
just because you would, it goes back to what I was saying earlier. Just because you went through it and it made you a better person does not mean that it's not going to kill the next person. Because there are some kids that's at 5 years old trying to cook and be latchkey kids that burn the whole house down. So it goes back to what Miss Sims saying as far as the extremes, because technology now it is used for as a pacifier, but so was you learning those skills that you ain't had no business learning at 5. That was a pacifier too. It's just different forms of pacification um to whatever level your environment brings you to. Just because a person know, well, I won't say people don't know how to cook, because there are people that know how to cook. That's in younger generations. It may not be as prevalent, but some of the older people, they cook, but it ain't good. They just know how to throw
no,
something in
what?
the
Well,
pot.
I'm just saying the fact that they don't have the mentality to where they want to do for self, which is why
Yeah.
I'm phrasing it under self sufficiency. So I'm saying that in exchange for self sufficiency and doing things myself, kind of like why I went back to talking about research and looking things up, they are used to technology replacing that. So that part of emotional maturity is not there because it's not
But
required.
that's not emotional security, because you can do tasks. Those tasks don't sustain to emotional security. The
I said
things
emotional maturity, not security maturity.
I apologize. Even maturity, that's not emotional maturity. That is you learning tasks because you're in survival mode. That's survival. The children nowadays, well, one, you dealing with a lot of parents that don't cook every day. You're dealing with parents that go and get McDonald's or go to fast food because fast food quicker. My kids eat at home every day. Now they might eat leftovers every now and then, but I cook on a regular basis, so my children know what cooking is. If your parents don't cook, then they're not gonna know. Like, it's almost like when children are raised by their grandparents because their parents wasn't doing what they were supposed to be doing.
Mhm.
Their parents didn't do it, so they went to their grandparents. But without their grandparents, they're stuck in survival mode. So survival mode, yes, it does make you self-sufficient. Yes, it does do a lot of things to mature you, but the reality is nobody should have to live in survival mode. Nobody should have to live in the state of I got to defend myself all the time. I got to learn how to cope with life. You're not supposed to cope with life. You're supposed to adjust to life as it comes to you. So with the animation, with automation and the artificial intelligence, what it does is it just shifts the mindset. Instead of being codependent, now it's an extreme of super independence in some instances, because there's some things that your kids don't need you for that you was codependent on your parents or your guardians for, that right now they could do on their own. Even when you talk about technology, it's some things that they could go find right now in like 5 minutes that it's going to take you about 2 or 3 hours to figure out what what did you
Yeah,
do.
but so what we're doing is we're shifting the codependency from each other to now artificial intelligence. So the human interaction is going to suffer, and there's going to be more of a gap between how we are able to communicate with one another, as opposed to we rather communicate with an artificial intelligence.
I would exchange suffer from to change, because a lot of times when things outgrow what we've been accustomed to, we think that whatever coming next is going to be bad, or is not going to be good, or is going to make the next generation um quote unquote dumber. But it's the evolution of life is what it is. If in 10 years nobody is flipping burgers in McDonald's or no other restaurants, the children, people our age and old, my age and older, they're not going to know how to adjust to being purposeful. While the children now, they are not eager to go into jobs always based on money. Where we were led by money, they are more led by purpose. And I think the difference
That,
is
that's true
that
there.
being led by purpose takes your mindset in a different route than being a worker bee and thinking that you always got to be working in order to be purposeful. And because a lot of people don't have purpose, a lot of people are just going along to get along. And then as soon as they lose a job, that's why they become suicidal. As soon as something go wrong, that's why their whole life seems like it's up in a roar, because they don't know how to function outside of being what robots and AI will eventually replace.
Well, let me ask this question then. I mean, okay, if we're talking about kids and being purposeful,
Mhm.
and then we're talking about taking away the exact things that teach them how to be independent and teach them how to be purposeful. And I'm talking about entry level jobs here, because that's how, well, most people, uh, they start out with that work ethic. They have one job, and then they move on to another job, and then you have a relationship, and you develop a family, and then I mean,
That's not
uh,
purpose.
it's not purpose to want to feed your family.
That
It's not. It's
it,
not.
it's a
It's not.
difference. Mm-mm.
No, no, no. Wait a minute now, because as I'm saying, these entry level jobs that our teenagers or our young adults had access to are
We
going to become a thing of the past, just like that assembly line worker in the automotive industry. So, what do we do, or how do we bridge that gap
the
and
difference
still teach our kids responsibility?
the difference between purpose and a job is a job you're trying to feed your family. This is a survival mode mentality. Purpose is I am going to do what I'm drawn to. I'm going to do something that's meaningful, something that's going to affect the world in a way other than just my family. Because feeding your family is not purpose. Learning ethic is cool. Learning how to be dedicated and committed to something is cool, but that is not purpose. That has absolutely nothing to do with purpose. It's no different than what they say about going to school and the education system and how it's a chain link to the prison system. It's the same thing. Working is just teaching you how to obey somebody else's rules, to feed into somebody else's dream and whatever their, I want to say purpose, but nowadays everything is based on consumerism. So they're not even serving a purpose. They're providing services or providing a product that will help you, but those things aren't necessarily purposeful.
Aren't you self-employed?
Yeah,
Why are you self-employed? You're doing something that you like, and you turned it into something that was profitable, or at least something that you and your family uh, considered
a
as part.
job, a job isn't the same.
You don't have to have a job. Like I said, if you're
What
self-employed,
I'm doing, this is what I'm saying. I'm not doing something that is just something for me to do. I don't do this for me. I don't try to make money out of anything that I'm doing when it comes to my purpose. My purpose is helping educate people to learn themselves, grow themselves, and become more purposeful, meaning find something with a deeper meaning that connects you into this world that makes you want to live, breathe, and go on every day. That is not a job. There are
that's
people
why
that
you're
go in.
self. That's why you're self-employed and not working for someone else.
No, I do what I do because I don't have to work. I don't have to go and clock in somewhere and get a paycheck in order for my time. That gave me time to be able to do what was satisfying to my soul. It's a difference between doing something because you need money and doing something that is satisfying to your soul.
I
But
think
somewhere along the lines, those become interchangeable because you can have a purpose, a strong purpose. Uh, then somewhere along the line, that can turn into uh, a job in regards to doing something to, as you say, survive. Because if your purpose in life is to become an actor or an actress, that is what lights your fire and this and that. And then you go along that road and path. Somewhere along the line, you're gonna need, in order to accomplish that purpose, you're gonna meet up with someone else that has a job that will fit your purpose. So to me, the conversation interacts somewhere along the line. And then as you're talking, you have to factor in the cycle of life in regards to when you're younger, you raise children. As you age like I am, then a lot of time the adult children are making decisions and doing things for the parents. So if I haven't supported the school system that Dr. Case's kids go to see that they're fully educated, et cetera, somewhere down the line, I might meet up with them if I'm hospitalized or if I'm a senior citizen, and if I haven't insisted that wherever a child lives that they have the best education, et cetera, et cetera. Who's going to help me to stay alive in terms of knowing how to be a doctor, knowing how to connect with people, to talk to a doctor if I have dementia and I can't talk for myself. So they all get interrelated along somewhere along the long line of life.
The difference is, I think what I should articulate, the difference is there are doctors that are doctors because that's a job that pays a six-figure salary. They don't give a darn care about the patients. They're not going to pay attention to the treatment that they're going to give you. They just going to come in there. They're going to write your prescription because the pharmacy people paying them a check to get these pills pushed out. So they writing you a prescription just because they said they giving you COVID vaccines because somebody is putting money in their pocket to give you COVID vaccines, despite the fact that there's no testing on it, despite of none of that. But then there are people who in their lineage, in their ancestral DNA, that are natural healers, that are shamans and natural medicine people that if they pursued being a doctor, the outcome would be different. You're not going to get a whole bunch of meal type of things. You're going to get people that actually care about your care about your well-being and the service that they provide you. There's a difference between getting a job as a doctor, a nurse, a teacher, or anything where in which you service other people or help other people, that you're just trying to make numbers versus being purposeful. And I felt called and led to do a job, or I felt called and led to do this, and it led to being a job. And now I'm in a position to help people from a compassionate, empathetic standpoint versus just turning numbers and being a pill mill. It's
Well, just like what you just
important
said. I
first.
mean, this is something that has to grow. This is something that just doesn't come right away. This is something that takes some things have to happen before you can get to that point. Just a kind of a basic example is maybe 10 years or so ago, my son wanted to buy a house. And so he was looking around and he said, "Come on, come to the closing with me, Dad. Come to the," and I'm like, "Well, wait a minute. I mean, do I got to bring my checkbook with this or what's going on here? You know?" So he goes in there and surprising to me, he pulls out all this money. He has it and he's self-sufficient. He does it. But when we got home, his grandmother happened to be there. And she said, "Okay, I'm real proud of you, but you got to pay your light bill. You got to pay that electric bill. You got to pay that water bill. You got to pay your taxes." See, all of these things have to be done before you can get to the point of a goal. And I think that those things lead you to. I think being, purposeful, I ended up in a child protection just because my business was going slow. My kids was in private school. My wife was paying for the insurance. I said, well, that's not fair. So I took that to get where we needed to be. And I think that that's still going to always be the harbinger of life. I think
It's
that's always going to be something that you're going to have to, that's got to be, those certain things have to be in place first before you can do anything.
This is the question. This is the question that I used to be a finance counselor at University of Phoenix. And one of the main questions that I would ask the students and how I decided to build my life for myself. If you never had to work for money another day in your life. Now, y'all a little bit on the older side, so it's a little bit different. But if you never had to work another day in your life to earn money and all of your bills were paid for, what would you do with yourself? A lot of people is not doing the jobs that they do right now if they never had to provide for their families. If money was given to them and all they had to do was live, enjoy life, and build their family, they are not working the jobs that y'all think that they need to develop. People were developing before slaves started having to have a job in order to feed themselves. People had to learn how to survive in the land. You could still learn work ethic and being a good person and character and all of those things without having to uh, earn a living. You
Let me
earn
say
it to live.
this because I think what we're missing here, what Dr. Casey's saying, is we have to recognize that the basically the living model in terms of how we are moving is going to change, because in the past it was based on our living models were based on labor. It was based on labor. But through the advent of where technology is moving now, those laborious jobs in that laborious environment is going to be replaced by AI. And so, therefore, in order for humans to be able to now adapt, a whole different economic system is going to have to be developed to where that economic system is in itself. In other words, we're not going to be going to school to learn how to get a job so that we can basically fulfill laborious positions. It's going to cause a shift, a paradigm shift to take place to where whatever you do is based upon a developed purpose. My concern with that, Dr. Casey, and this is a thing that I see, because you got to go back to some of the stuff that's happening, especially on the horizon with Elon Musk, and on the horizon what's happening between the United States and China in regards to the whole chip manufacturing and the control of that aspect is, how do you deal with a large population that all of a sudden is in a position where they're able to now start having time on their hands to be free thinkers. I think there's going to be some major thing that takes place that's going to eradicate a certain percentage of the population, because I just don't see technology, or should I say the elite or the people that are in charge, in a position where they want millions and billions of people now to be able to just actually think and not have to occupy their time in an environment.
Now I don't think that they're gonna let us just be idle. They gonna definitely fill the time clock with something else, just because, um, just for the simple fact that they need us distracted to an extent. So there will be some other form of distraction. I mean, and you're gonna get enough people they're gonna be complaining about the AI anyway. So it's going to always be something there to distract us. But when you are moving more purposeful, you won't the distractions um will be what goes on around you, because now there will be a big shift in environment, with the mindsets of people, and going from being again worker bees to being more of a free agent. It's just, what are we expecting for them to do when people become free agents? If they're supplying you with all of these things, then what? And there will be a lot of restlessness. I think that there will be a lot of it could be violence, but I think in the end people will be closer as humans, because we're not competing for jobs. We're not competing for a position. We're not competing and trying to see who can do this to be better, versus we're all just doing what we are called to do. And if I am not even let's remove the purpose and being called. If we are all allowed to work on ourselves more, it's going to change the environment, because people will have more time to themselves to think, to be, to just act and love their families. Now the question is, will people be able to sustain the narrative of not having to go and earn a living, to have to buy water, to paying all these extracurricular things for mostly natural resources? That's really going to be the shift of it all.
Well, I got a question still on that, because I think because of where they're going with virtual environments, is that the whole family model is also going to change. Because keep in mind, they're already at a point now to where you are able to create the same stimulations in a virtual world, like where you in sleep, into to where it actually feels like it really is happening. So from that standpoint, I can have me a girlfriend in a virtual world and never want a real live girlfriend. I could create me a family in a virtual world and never want a real live family.
But for some people, they're already doing that with just
Yeah,
instant
yeah. There's already been blow up dolls and all that stuff. I mean, that
yeah,
stuff is
for,
nothing
for,
new.
for years. Like that's been going on since the 70s with the blow up dolls and all that. So there is a problem with it.
You
But
can
that's
go
why
back very. You can go back further than the 70s. Don't just
yeah,
try to put it on Miss Sims and Mr. Scott.
I'm just saying, like, those things already existed, and then with social media now, social media feels for myself. My most of my interaction with people is online, because I don't like people. Like, people are hard to deal with, for various reasons. But that does fill that void already. It's just going to be a matter of what are people satisfied with, because at some point you do need that human interaction. You do need that sense of affection and all those other things in reality. But like mentioned before, we're going into a Stepford Wives type of generation where in the eras to come, I'm kind of excited to get older, because it's just so much unfolding right now. I always think about older people and what they've seen, and how life has evolved, and I'm excited to see the evolution of life from my childhood to the next generation, and so on and so forth. So we about to close up. Miss Sims, your final thoughts, please.
I'm just listening to your conversation. My final thoughts in the conversation just now between you and some of the things that Robert was saying in terms of a job, doing something as a job, and as a purposeful. The purposeful thing you have to also incorporate uh, the type, your environment, what you brought up, the values that you've learned, a lot of your personality. So both people can, you and Robert can become a doctor in the end, but you arrive at being a doctor through different channels, through different. He's seeing it as he's going to be a billionaire, and you were seeing it that you want to help people. You want to do your purpose is to help people to develop and grow, but while at the same time you arrive at the same point. And so you have to take those things in. And in thinking future wise, when I think of future wise, for my daughter's generation, your generation, and your children's generation, um, if society allows the human element to be taken out of things and automation to control things that are going on, to me it saddens me because right now a lot of things will have to shift in terms of when Robert was talking. Change is going to come, and that change, I think, a change is coming. But if you take because we are, even how we are made as humans right now, even though you may hate people, Dr. Casey, but you need people. You need that doctor to help you with your for your eyes. You need the doctor. You need the teacher for your children. So right now, I think a lot of our society is more and more is getting to believe that we don't need each other. We aren't our brother's keeper. Whereas in reality, yes, we are our brother's keeper. We cannot be born or die without somebody else. We don't get born by ourselves and we don't get buried by ourselves. So just keep those things in mind, everybody.
Now, Miss Sims, I have a rebuttal. I might have a rebuttal for everybody, but I don't know yet. My rebuttal, Miss Sims, is that yes, we do need people, but we need people that desire to be there, not people that are there for a check. It's a difference between a person that is there for a check versus a person that is there because they are committed to it. I have a high school teacher. One of my high school teachers was probably the most influential teacher that I had because she talked to me. She wanted to give me guidance and help me be a better person. Probably the reason why I ended up on this path. That same teacher, still to this day, she taught me 20 years ago. Till this day, she still teaches people the same type of messages that she taught me. That's not a job for her. That's a purpose for her. But there's another teacher that my child experienced that was getting ready to retire from teaching, that she wasn't even teaching the kids nothing. She wasn't doing shit. And she was in there for so long, she was counting down for retirement. Two totally different teachers. One that's committed and one that has a job looking forward to retirement. It's the person that's get the opportunity to retire and still want to work doing the same thing for free if they had to, that I'm more interested in. Mr.
And
Scott.
I can't disagree with that what you're saying in terms of people's behavior, because one of the with the difference in the purpose and the job is going to show up is in the quality of their work. That's what, well, like you said, the quality of that work. And so unless you, if you're going to a doctor, unless you do some research or find to connect with other people to find out who's who, then you're out there and you're just kind of guessing. So I don't disagree with you in terms of the reasons why people do things. It can show up in various other aspects. One of them is the quality of the work, the quality how they treat you.
Mm-hmm. Mr. Scott,
And
your final thoughts?
Final, from my standpoint, with the technology and the whole putting together. I don't have to work. I mean, I really don't. But I have been in a nonprofit, and I do a lot of community stuff. I'm working on trying to get this George Floyd Square together. But what happens is I go to these meetings and they want to continue to talk about stuff, but they don't do anything. I mean, that George Floyd thing has sat there since that day. I mean, they won't even run the buses through there no more. They won't put the police don't even come there anymore. There's all kind of drug dealing, crazy stuff going on there. Police don't even come there anymore. They say these people have taken it over as the sacred space of George Floyd. I'm like, what? This is our neighborhood. And so what I find is, yeah, I volunteer, I go to these things and I do the things I want to do, but I bump heads with people that are there just to get money. There are people that are there to just run their mouth and intimidate these white people so they can get some money and put it in their pocket and not do anything for the community. So that's where this is where the trade-off of these things go. I'm doing what I want to do, but to make that change, it's almost like I'm fighting a singular battle because all the people that are there to do these things, I go there, all these sticky papers on the wall, all these, everybody writes something and everybody says something, but nothing gets done. I want to see action. I want to see the efforts that I'm putting into this lead to somewhere. So I mean, I think but I had to work hard to get to the point that I'm at. I can work as much as I want or as little as I want. That's not even an issue right now, thank goodness. But the external forces, the external things that you have to continue to battle to get to where I think we need to be, it's uphill, and I don't see how that really changes because many of the people there, the city council, the mayors, they're there, they're there for this. They're there for this. They're really not there to make this city better. They're really not there to clean these things up because I see it up close. I'm in these meetings. So
and that's not gonna change until you get more people like Dr. Kaci that's there like you out of their purpose to change that. And a perfect example.
So that's uphill thing that I see, uphill battle.
James, your final thoughts?
Well, first of all, Miss Sims, you need to throw away that rendition of "We Shall Overcome." That's the first thing. That's the first thing we need to do. We've been singing that song for so goddamn long. It makes my throat hurt just thinking
Stop
about it.
singing and get out there and change it, James.
Well, hey, that's the purpose of this show and bringing on people like you and Mr. Scott. That's what this show is for, to try to make a change. But when we start talking about artificial intelligence, I think once again, it's becoming a part of our conditioning to accept things for our convenience. But if we read, and I know that a lot of this is fiction, but at one time so was man landing on the moon or going to Mars or whatever. But the thing that we have to get through our minds or within our grasp is that there's no society where these things turn out for a positive direction. Either we get the scenario of the machines taking over, or people becoming lazy and not wanting to take care of themselves and wanting to learn new methods. So when we look at it objectively, no one has ever written a book about a successful artificial intelligence society. there's always a flaw, and it's always left to man or a human to try and fix something that we've already set on a bad path. So, my words, I guess, as far as AI, is be careful what you wish for. Prisons are going, just in case you didn't know it. Prisons are also going automated. It's so,
House arrest.
Now wait, the Jetsons was a successful AI culture. They
how,
ran
wait,
successfully.
wait. How about the technology race between, was it the Sprockets and whatever company that George Jetson worked for? They were always in constant conflict.
They
I'm a
were always in competition.
I'm a TV kid. We can go back to Bugs Bunny. I haven't fought. I mean, there's Bugs Bunny cartoons about automation going wild.
Yeah,
And Bugs trying to set it right because he can't get a damn care.
the thing is that and my rebuttal to you is that when it comes to seeing something be a success, a person will have to have the mindset to see it be a success, because if you think it's almost like the Y2K. If you think that Y2K is coming and everybody gonna die, then guess what? Ain't nothing that you gonna forecast gonna be that people gonna live. It's almost like whoever write the story be able to create the narrative, so they're never going to make it seem like it's supposed to be okay.
Do you remember all the rumors that spread around New Year's of 2000?
2000, the ones that came in 2012 when the Mayans said it was 2000. The Mayans said that we was not gonna be here right now. According
See,
to them, we was
you
supposed to be gone.
Mama said I wasn't gonna be here, so yeah. I mean, what the hell can I say?
So when you talk about the stories that have been created, some of those stories have to be lived and written to see the positive ending. It's just like for a lot of people, there are always people that's going to tell you you're not going to make it, you're not going to do well, and all of those other things. But if you live long enough and learn from those experiences, then you could definitely outlive the people's projections that had negative things to say about you.
Of course, I know how to work this computer now. 25 years ago, I would have never thought of that. You know, like you said, I mean, there are positives, but when you decide that you're going to lean on something too much, you know, that's why they give you a sidearm along with your weapon, just in case.
uh, Mr. Williams, your final thoughts?
Um, to me, it goes into this. We have to. I look at it from the standpoint of where we are as African peoples in terms of fighting oppression and dealing with oppression and dealing with imperialism. I think my biggest concern is the holders of the holders of labor in terms of guiding the world population on how they wanted things to go are the same holders of this current technology in guiding things the way they want to go. So to me, the biggest thing is really is it an exchange of this of the slave master going from uh one type to another, or we moving away from carbon based slave master to a silicon based slave master. So I think my caution is that no matter which way we go and how we look at this as black people, we definitely need to make sure that we're doing our due diligence to change the condition or the situation in terms of where we sit within the realm of being the producers of technology or the producers of anything. Because as long as our role is consumption, then no matter what platform you're on, it's going to still be we're going to still end up with the bad end of the stick. So we have to fight the same fight regardless of what medium that we're dealing with this fight. And so that's my biggest concern. And I would even go as far as telling people, and I throw two things out there. I just sent James these links. just so you can be really see how far things have advanced. Take a look at a company called Boston Dynamics and see what they are doing with their robots, because Elon Musk is keeping his stuff all under wraps. But go look at what Boston Dynamics have been doing, and actually how you can actually purchase some of the commercial versions of some of this robotic technology now, that you just don't see it in neighborhoods, but it's available. And then I would even go kind of going back to what I was telling you, Dr. Casey, in regards to the model of the family unit and how far they have came. When we, since it was mentioned about a blow up doll, y'all go check out, if you dare, a company called Real Doll, and that is way different than what y'all are used to in terms of a blow up doll. To the point to where the thing talks, does sex acts, and all of that other stuff, and has the texture of a human being. And trust me, the way the people, the mind works, and where they are with VR technology and where they're going with that stuff, when it comes to a reason to have a family, that the conceive your actual child is like the only reason why people will want to go that route, because all of the options that are being made available can give you your fantasy hands down, opposed to anything that another person can do, even interaction as to where they're going with AI. So we have to be careful, because we will be replacing chemical crack with this virtual crack, and we'll find ourselves in a level of addiction that just transforms from, again, from one medium to the next, and it is very dangerous in terms of the ability to access this type of stuff. So we just have to, really make sure as a people that we know what we're getting into, and that we don't find ourselves at the bottom of the list or continually being oppressed as technology moves into the spectrum.
Now, for my
So
final thought.
these virtual people, then they want the D.
Listen, I think that when you visit virtual reality, there is a lot to be cautious of when you're dealing with artificial intelligence and technology in general, because
Mhm.
there is the possibility of a malfunction. There's a possibility of takeover. Even when we talked about the Tesla that stopped in the middle of the highway, or the other things that when you put a machine in charge, no different than a computer, it definitely gets viruses and crashes. So there is something to be cautious about. And even when you're talking about building a family, what we will see when people start getting these robotic dolls and things of that nature is that their void won't be filled. They will crash out, for lack of better terms, because they will get these things and think that it's going to sustain them or fill the void, and it will not do what an actual human can do. The human connection will never be something that will be unneeded or unnecessary. It could be devalued for a time period, but it will take for life to show people that you need the human connection. It will take for a malfunction of the system for people to realize and wake up how powerful we are together. Now, in regards to what Miss Sims was saying about doing your due diligence with medical professionals to figure out who is really there for the right reasons, go to the board of health, go to your state's medical board, and look up the doctor that you're going to. Look, do a little research, do a little background check on that physician, because all medical um, doctor boards, they all have a malpractice history. Well, up to about 10 years or so, they have to list any malpractice cases that a person has settled or has been claimed against them on their medical license. So there is some due diligence that you can do, or that can be done in order to verify who's there by chance or who's there by purpose, because there are a lot of people filling in gaps and voids because somebody needed to fill a job or a position versus they really want to do it. And you
And
can tell that by the results.
can I ask Siri
Look,
and get all that? If I can't get all that from asking Siri, then most of the time it ain't gonna happen.
But the
I
thing is that you might be able to get it from asking Siri. Siri is able to say, okay, well, in this person's medical board history, this is what they've experienced. Because Siri has access to these public
Stats, yeah.
websites. Yeah, it's a public information, but you have to know that you can go and look at that doctor's medical history, where they went to school at, the things that they taught, the things that they've learned, the type of organizations that they're in. All of those things are available through the technology that y'all saying that is not so good. It's available. It's just learning how to use the technology for what it's for versus as a distraction, because there are a lot of distractions in this world, and technology, like a blow up doll or like crack or like alcohol, like being a workaholic, all of it can be a distraction. There is nothing.
Representative Sanchez.
Listen, whether you regardless of what it is, anything can be a distraction. Too much church is a distraction. So it's really eliminating the distraction so that each and every one of us can be purposeful and also begin to again accept ourselves, check ourselves, and take responsibility for who we are as individuals. When I think of artificial intelligence, I think of becoming individuals in a place, in a space where we can all begin to come together again. And
I
that's it.
I agree that there's places out there to check certified boards and things like that. It's like doing a background check, and I've done that in the past with some other people regarding some things. A lot of people don't know and realize that, though, Dr. Kaci. And then a lot of times when you're sick, I mean, you don't have time to do. I mean, you're sick. You need to have something happen right away, and you're in this, and then you're in that, and so you're in you usually you could end up in a situation, a real life situation, where that the quality of that doctor is right there, and you didn't have time to check and find out. One of the areas, as you're talking, I think of in the past, it used to be where people did look at background checks of various doctors was when they did cosmetic surgery. Earlier days, I don't know what they do now, but it's all out there, like you say. But a lot of times when you're sick, I mean, you need a doctor right there.
See, but if you're doing your routine checkups and you're being proactive about your health care, then you're less likely to enter an emergency situation where you don't have the time to really look up the person. Because before you go to your primary care physician, you can go and look up on the site and see. Let me see, is this thing really doing what he's supposed to be doing, or is he doing some funny nutty business? Because and then in addition to, and I have not done this in depth when it comes to physicians, but you can also go and look up the his criminal record or her criminal record to see what type of things are they hiding. Like, because they could be a drunk, they might be at work drunk, and you just don't know it, you know. But unless you go and do that type of research, you would never know. And if you're a veteran, then you still might not ever know, because with veterans, when a doctor goes and work for the VA, if they ever get sued, it's never going to be on their individual record, because you can't sue doctors that work for the government directly. You have to sue the government. So it's a loophole. And you know, there is a form of artificial intelligence that can help with the loopholes that are overlooked by humans.
I think of the word Robert used, just what you said. Robert used the word back in terms of access. Because you just said the information is out there, but sometimes there's stumbling blocks for you to be able to get that. So I see what you're saying. I get the point that you are making.
James, that is our show for tonight. If you have any more final thoughts, other than that, you know, next Monday, same place, same time.
All
Thank
right,
you,
well,
Dr.
hey,
Casey.
great
right,
show. Thank you, Dr. Casey. I guess we have to do more of these so we can get Mr. Scott here, but you know.
You know. Yeah, you know, I have to.
You see, that's baby. Baby got them nose.
Huh? Okay, you know. So you know.
We're gonna
Good
call
night,
it.
good night. I'm going
Good
crazy.
night, y'all. Y'all have a good night.
Peace and love. Good night.
Bye.
Bye bye.